So I thought I'd get some fuel while we were out. We got 4 cans of propane and then 2 gas jugs. I also got some more propane. I got 2 full cans underneath the porch, and then I got 3 partials, one hooked up to the stove, one hooked up to the water heater, and one hooked up to the generator. Plenty of propane for a good long while. Well, propane should last, I don't know, a few months, assuming we don't use it for heat. I mean, we've been known to do that on a cooler day, but not real cold. I want to knock off the chill in the house. We'll run the Mr. Heater Portable Buddy. And then we tend to go through propane pretty quick, but of course we try to use wood heat as much as possible. Kind of raining today. I tell you, fall sure seems like it's going to hit early. Actually, you're starting to see some leaves changing and falling. See it here. You see the leaves are changing colors. I mean, it's, I guess, late August, but usually we don't see that until September, October. So we went ahead and filled up the truck. Told you the other day gas prices went from $3.44. It was dropping. It went down to $3.44, and then the next week it went up to $3.59. So I got some gas when that happened. What was that, a day or two ago? Truck's filled up, the gas tanks are filled up. I've been trying so hard not to use the gasoline for the lawnmower and the generator. Looks like I'll have to run the generator a little bit today. Of course, I also have a propane generator, and for now it seems like the prices are about the same between the propane and the gasoline. When I get the military discount, they give me a military discount, which is pretty significant. It drops the price like from $14 down to $11 per fill. So that puts it right at the same price of gasoline when I run the generator. Same amount of hours. I use the same amount of money running the generator 30 hours on propane as I do running the gasoline on the generator for 30 hours. That was how we had to calculate it. Feel like we're set for a while. I don't want to have to shut off the refrigerator is what the big deal is. I can run our house off solar panels without generator at all if I didn't have the refrigerator. Since I have the refrigerator, I have to run the well off a generator unless it's a really sunny day. Well, of course, today, if I had to run the well pump off the solar panels today, I couldn't do it. So if I shut off the refrigerator, I'd always have a storage of energy in my batteries. And so I could run the well just about any time I needed. I would still try to do it on sunny days. Of course, I got the 275-gallon IBC tank, so that's what I do is I fill it. So what I would do on a sunny day, I would just fill the IBC tank, and then we'd have all that stored water to pump in with the RV pump. I've showed you all that system before. So I think that we're going to have to start considering these things. I think things are going to get worse again. Just when we thought things were getting better, you know, these preppers, they keep talking about SHTF and stockpile, 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 but you can only stockpile so much gasoline. Eventually the gasoline is going to run out or go bad. Now propane, it stores for a long time. It stores for 30 years. I talked about this before. But how much propane can you store? Now, some people have suggested that I get one of those 500-gallon propane tanks, and I would, except then there has to be an inspection on the house. And I don't really want it in the house. I don't need propane in the house. I need the propane for the generator. I need propane for the water heater, which is a camping water heater. They would never approve that camping water heater to hook up to a 500-gallon tank. I have the little camp stove for cooking. They'd never approve that. So getting a 500-gallon tank approved, I basically have to have a permitted house. What I mean by that is this, I didn't have to have permits to build this little tiny house, but if I wanted to get propane, I would have to have permits. And that means I have to have I think a 400 square foot house or more. And this is just under 200 square foot. The 500-gallon thing is out. That would be a good option. It really would. Fill it once and leave it probably the rest of your life. I wouldn't use that much propane, I don't think. But we're gonna have to start thinking how to get off of gasoline, I think. As you know, I'm sure you heard about the BP oil refinery catching fire the other day. And immediately the federal government jumped in and called a regional emergency. So I think it's 3 or 4 states that are under emergency. So what they did was they took the restrictions off truck drivers. So truck drivers now can drive, I think, more than 10 hours. It doesn't matter. They can drive longer periods of time without rest. So when they're suspending safety protocols, you know it must be pretty serious. Now, of course, we have to consider that an election's coming up and they can't really afford an emergency right now. So they're probably throwing out this safety protocols so they don't have a fuel shortage. In my mind, we're still gonna have a fuel shortage. If this ain't last for very long, let's say it's down for a couple weeks, I think they produce 400,000 barrels per day, then they're gonna have to take gas from someplace else. Remember, this is harvest time, so farmers are needing diesel fuel. There's also jet engine fuel produced there. So airplane restrictions, gas restrictions. So they're going to have to get it from other parts of the country. So supply and demand is going to kick in. Of course, less supply, more demand, prices are going to go up. Now, there used to be a Federal Reserve of oil. They used to keep it in a tunnel or something. But we sold all that to China, or at least most of it. So our oil reserves are really low right now. So we can't just, automatically dip into our oil reserves. And 400,000 barrels per day, I think, is what they said they produce. We'd go through our reserves pretty quick anyways. So just expect prices to go up. Which brings me to my point that I've been trying to make for so long. Prepping isn't going to get you there. If oil prices go up for an extended period of time, months, how are you going to do things? How are you going to travel? So first thing you got to do is you got to go to work. Well, Carolyn and I work at home. So we reduced our cost. So we don't have to have large bills, so we have to have a large paycheck. The only bills we have is our 2 cell phones, our insurance, and our food cost. But our food cost is very minimalistic. We only spend maybe $150 a month on food because the majority of our food comes from our chickens. Now, as time goes on, the more chickens we get and more eggs we make, we're going to reduce that even more. So we don't have to drive all the time. We go to Dollar General once a week to get some ice cream, just as a snack, and that's only a few miles away. We could literally walk there probably if we wanted to, if it was cool enough. It wouldn't be a big deal. So we've already reduced the amount of money we have to spend. Now, I was saying before, I try to reduce the amount of, I'm running a lawnmower. I hear people all the time just running a lawnmower like non-stop. They're constantly running their lawnmower. Of course, it's not as much gas as maybe your car, but my lawnmower takes 2 gallons of gas to cut the grass. So if I did that every week, it'd be 8 gallons. 8 times 5 is $40 just to cut the grass. Well, I cut it myself. Back in the day, I used to cut people's yards for $10 a yard. And here I'd be, so that's $40 just to have somebody else do it. So now I'm doing it myself and I'm still having to spend $40. It's just not worth it. So I reduced the amount I mow. I think I'm down to about once a month. It's raining today, so the grass is going to pop back up. I was going to wait until next Sunday. This is Sunday today. I was going to wait until next Sunday, but I may have to cut it a little early. But that still would be 2.5 to 3 weeks before I have to cut it. Once again, I don't have to cut grass living out here. There is no fines that I'm going to get. Nobody's going to come out and say, oh, you got to cut your grass. Granted, the bugs and the snakes and that kind of stuff do kind of build up when the grass is tall. Just be careful and you don't have to worry about it. Now, eventually, the more we have to feed chickens from our own homestead, we will probably end up cutting a little bit more frequently simply because it would be easier to feed the chickens grass instead of letting them free range. I've said many times that we've got birds of prey around here. We got eagles because we live close to a lake. These eagles would swoop down trying to get them as it is, and they're already in that chicken run. So it's not safe to let them free range. Now, some people will say, oh, let them free range, you're going to have a loss of chickens, but it's still a good thing to let them free range. I can't have a loss of chickens. We rely on chickens. So we try to give the grass to them. The other thing is I've talked about a lot, is we're coming back up on winter. And fuel prices are going up, electric prices are going up, gas prices are going up, everything's going up. If you haven't already figured out how to heat your home with a wood stove, I think you seriously need to start considering it. Now, I watched the video today and he made some pretty valid points. I mean, I guess I've thought about them before, but I've never really spoke about them. I have talked about that if this house ever caught fire, I would never call the fire department. That's how I like to live. I would either put it out myself or just let it burn down, whatever the case is. I mean, it's a tiny house. It wouldn't really be hard to fight a fire. I keep 2 fire extinguishers here, one in the truck and one in the house. If we had a house fire, if I could get to the extinguisher in the house, I would use it first, then I would run out to the truck. I'd get the second extinguisher. You should be able to put out a fire in this house pretty quickly. Of course, we don't hardly leave ever, so we would be home when the fire would start. It's happened to me before. I lived in a house and we had a mouse that ate through the electrical wire and it started a fire in the attic. And I put that out myself. Never called the fire department. It was 2 a.m. I mean, so it wasn't like the house burned down, but I caught it. Now, if you call the fire department, they're going to come out and they're going to destroy your house. So put it out yourself. But I watched this video and he was talking about how insurance carriers will not insure your home if you have a wood stove, or they're going to jack the prices up really high. And he was saying that you'd have to really weigh it out. Are they going to jack the insurance rates up higher than the electric cost? He suggested that the insurance companies are going to charge you $2,500 to have a wood stove per year. Well, if you figured out your fuel costs for electric heat or whatever, is the price is going to be higher? Well, I know when I was living in a house, we had an electric furnace. The prices probably came pretty close to that back then. That was 12 years ago. The other thing he said is there's a lot of fire departments that won't put out your home if you have a wood stove. They'll come out and they'll make sure all the trees don't burn, but they won't touch your house because you got a wood stove. They're trying to punish you for having free heat. That's another reason why, if you want to have a wood stove, you really should have several fire extinguishers and the ability to put it out. The one thing I always worry about, of course, is I got this propane tank right here next to the camp stove. And I knew a guy one time who was cooking with a barbecue pit. They went in and started eating and the propane tank caught on fire, or the barbecue pit caught on fire. So I've always kind of thought about that. Nice thing is the house is got a metal around it, so it wouldn't catch fire right away. It would give me some time to get things put out. Of course, the porch would catch on fire. So I insure my own home. Having a tiny house, I can insure it myself. I built it for $5,000. I'd probably build it again for that kind of cost. Or I just go out and get one of those sheds from Home Depot, 5,000 bucks. In my mind, it's a lot cheaper to build your own little tiny house for $5,000 than it is to insure your home for 2 years. You insure your home with a wood stove for 2 years, you've already exceeded the $5,000, so it's not worth it. That's one of the advantages I think I have over someone who has a regular size house. So if you can click that super thanks button, I'd really appreciate it. So if I can inspire you to get ready, because I think it's here. Thanks for watching.